you wanted to talk about the actual Prester John of the title, right?
Yes, unlike Torregana in the Ogadai play, he doesn't really feature as a character. He's more of a symbol of what will come.
Yeah, he's only seen in a dream.
Yeah. And he's sort of the this is the way the world ends, this is the way the world ends, this is
Yeah,
the way the world ends, not with a bang but a whimper.
yeah,
The way most empires go.
yeah. Well,
What
and
do you think of people looking at history and looking at it retroactively? I mean, you're very creative in how you interpret some of the voids of history, but I'll tell you as an example. I was talking to my father about Nostradamus,
mhm.
and he was telling me about how Nostradamus made this one prediction in one of his quatrains about how the Middle East will come uh, and seek vengeance against the Western kings. But at the time, Nostradamus was sort of like the Ray Bradbury of his time in that he took, just like with Star Trek, he took contemporaneous issues and he put them into these quatrains. And the Ottoman Empire was going to go after the rest of the West. It was expanding. That's what he was talking about. Yet I find, even with experts in history, that they look at things retroactively like that and bring things that have nothing to do with that particular history.
Yeah.
The same way that you'll see people go and try to tear down some of the racist implications of Abraham Lincoln. Well, that was just endemic to that time. I don't understand why they have to be judged by contemporary standards, and I don't understand why history needs to be looked at retroactively.
Well, the Prester John, the title is called the Prester John Parallax, and the two things that get resolved or come to the fore are the woman in white and the crow, and like I said, the original sin of violence that Genghis committed maybe a century before. And the other one is Prester John, and Prester John isn't personalized. Prester John is, in a sense, a manifestation of that original sin that the Borgigan clan, which is where the Khans come from, committed with presumably not only the killing of the crow by Genghis, but then the killing of Bector and the killing of millions of other people. And Prester John was a Nestorian king who was mythic, as far as we know. Nestorus was, I think, a Roman Catholic, or he was a saint, and he had certain ideas about the future. I don't remember exactly what it is, but the legend was that Prester John was this king that was either in Africa or Asia. Here he's set somewhere in the Siberian wastes north of the Mongol Empire, which they were tributary states, but weren't actually part of the empire. And apparently, when Kublai Khan became Khagan 8 years before the modern or the contemporary setting of the play, he got this letter, this mysterious letter, which is in Wapwa, but is translated. The letter itself is projected in Wapwa, and he basically is asking if he can send one of his Christian missionaries to impress the Khagan. And this seems pretty reasonable, but then we find out that Genghis Khan, which is true, Genghis Khan was at one time thought to be Prester John, because he was slaughtering the infidel Muslims left and right, and people thought that Genghis Khan, Prester John sounds somewhat similar, I guess, and he was mistaken for it. But this was 50 years earlier, and one of I think it's Fragile Leaf, or maybe it's Fu Tang, the translator, says, but that was 50 years ago, and Kublai Khan tends to know this, but so he puts the letter away for 8 years, and he keeps having the translator come back every few months to read it to him, as if there's something that he's missing in the letter. Again, this seems to be just like we had the manifestation of the woman in white as a manifestation of both Genghis and Ogadai's insecurities or alcoholism. Prester John plays that role, in a sense, to Kublai Khan, whereas the woman in white in this play is secondarily, he's not as affected by her as the other two Khans were, but he's more affected by Prester John. And so by having these characters and bringing in these historical parallels, and Prester John as the king that was going to save everything, just like we have global warming, who's going to be in 100 years, what's going to be the name of the scientist or the the civic leader or the politicians that help save the planet. Prester John is that mythic hope, and he comes into the play only in a dream with Kubla Khan, and I think it all works well. It's by far, I think, the most complex play, and at the end, we end up back the final two scenes. The final scene with the prisoner is an almost word for word replay, except now we go back to the Genghis Khan play. Just as that play ends with Genghis Khan feeling woozy as he's about to make his decision whether to commit genocide or not. This play ends with Kubla Khan whether he's going to drop the swinging axe on the prisoner, and this goes back to Joseph Stalin. The death of millions is the death of one man is a tragedy. The death of millions is a statistic. Genghis Khan is the statistic guy. He's racking up the body count, and even though Kubla Khan probably killed a few million people, we're left with him making the decision, and that the play ends. At least the Kubla part of the play ends with him reaching up towards the lever, and is he going to pull it or not? Blackout. And then we get the final scene with Danny Wagner reading the second half of the last third of Kubla Khan, the Coleridge poem. And it works well because here we've had all of this anxiety, all of this nervous tension, all of this, like as I said, this is the empire that's height. The founding of the Yuan dynasty in 1271. This is 70 or so years after, or maybe it's 75 years or so after Genghis Khan became Genghis Khan. The empire is larger than it's ever been. It's the largest land empire that's ever been on the planet, but it's all downhill from here. And then we get this romantic poem by Coleridge, and it ends with, "For he on honeydew hath fed and drunk the milk of paradise." So we get the idea that Kubla Khan from the poem is somewhat delusional about things, and it's one of the best workings and most organic workings of a poem.
Well, it works ironically as well as
Yeah.
possibly being the seed for the idea.
Yeah, and anyway, so that's